Close your eyes and listen carefully. There is a place beyond the edges of all maps, a place where even the dragonlords of Valyria, masters of fire and blood, refuse to fly. A land so cursed that women cannot bear children, where the sun never fully rises, and where shadows move with minds of their own. The Westerosi call it legend, the Associ whisper its name in fear, but I am here to tell you the truth. 8,000 years ago, something happened in the far east that changed the world forever. The long night did not begin at the wall. It began here, in the Shadowlands beyond Asshai, in a city of black stone, where a god emperor stood before a sealed door and spoke words that should never have been spoken. What came through that door brought winter to the world, birthed the White Walkers in the distant west, and killed millions in a single night. But here is what they do not tell you in the songs. Here is what the histories have forgotten. Those millions did not die as victims. They died as heroes, the greatest heroes who ever lived, performing a sacrifice so vast that the land itself became a tomb, a prison, a seal against something far worse than death. That seal is breaking. The door is cracking. And if it opens again, everything that exists will cease to have ever existed at all. Tonight, you will learn what really happened in the Shadowlands. You will discover the truth about the long night, about dragons, about the Bloodstone Emperor, and the wound in the world that he tore open. You will understand why the Game of Thrones means nothing when reality itself hangs by a thread. The truth waits in the darkness. Let us step into the shadow together. Our journey begins at the edge of the known world, in a city that exists as a warning to those who delve too deep into forbidden knowledge. Asshai by the Shadow. If you have heard of this place at all, you know it only through whispers and rumors, through the fearful tales of sailors who claim to have seen its black walls rising from the mist. But let me tell you what Asshai truly is. Picture a city built entirely of black stone, oily and dark, that seems to drink in light rather than reflect it. The buildings loom like monuments to some forgotten nightmare. No grass grows in its streets. No children laugh in its plazas. In fact, no children are born here at all. Women who conceive in Asshai miscarry. Animals brought here become sterile. The very essence of life itself seems to recoil from this place. Yet people do live here. Shadowbinders who can bend darkness to their will. Red priests who stare into flames and see tomorrow. Warlocks with eyes like indigo moons. Blood mages who trade in the currency of life itself. They have come from across the world, drawn by the promise of forbidden knowledge, willing to sacrifice normalcy for power. And they all share one thing in common. They all fear what lies to the east. Beyond Asshai, past the last crumbling docks, the Ash River flows black and thick like oil. It runs backward, you see, flowing up from somewhere deep in the earth, carrying poison that has infected the water for 8,000 years. Follow that river eastward, and you enter the true Shadowlands, a region where the sun never fully rises, where twilight is the brightest light you will ever see. The ghost grass grows there, tall, pale stalks that glow faintly in the darkness, beautiful and terrible, stretching as far as the eye can see. The Dothraki have a prophecy about ghost grass. They say that one day it will cover the world, and when it does, all men will die. But in the Shadowlands, that prophecy has already come true. The ghost grass marks the graves of millions. It grows from soil soaked in the greatest sacrifice in history. And deeper still, past the ghost grass, past the poisoned streams and the ruins of cities that predate Valyria by thousands of years, stands Stygai, the corpse city, a place of black stone and impossible architecture, where the laws of reality seem negotiable. No living person has ever returned from Stygai to tell what they found there. But that is where our story must go. Because in Stygai, at the heart of the Shadowlands, there is a door, a sealed door, and behind it lies the answer to everything. The origin of the long night, the birth of dragons, the true enemy that the White Walkers herald, the wound in the world that one man tore open when he reached for godhood and grasped oblivion instead. You are a seeker of truth. Perhaps you are a maester who has read too many forbidden texts, whose curiosity has led you beyond the safe walls of the citadel. Perhaps you are a Shadowbinder's apprentice, touched by visions you cannot explain. Or perhaps you are simply someone who knows deep in your bones that the stories are wrong, that the histories are incomplete, and that the real war is not for thrones but for existence itself. You are not alone in this quest. 3 companions have joined you, each drawn by their own thread of fate. There is a Shadowbinder from Asshai, ancient beyond measure, whose eyes have seen through the veil between life and death. There is a former slave from years.What, who escaped from masters that performed rituals 8,000 years old without understanding why. And there is a Dothraki warrior, a dreamer who walked into the ghost grass and received a vision that shattered his understanding of the world. Together, you stand at the docks of Asshai, looking east toward the darkness. The Shadowbinder has cast the bones and read the omens. The path is clear, even if the destination is shrouded in shadow. Stygai holds the answers. The corpse city guards the wound, and time is running out, because far to the west in Westeros, the White Walkers are marching. The long summer is ending. The dragons have returned. All the signs point to one truth. The binding is breaking. The seal is cracking, and you must understand what was sealed before it breaks free. Your ship is ready. The black sails are raised. The Ash River flows before you like a road into nightmare. And somewhere in the distance, beyond sight but not beyond feeling, something ancient and patient is beginning to stir. Something that has waited 8,000 years for the door to open once more. The journey into the Shadowlands begins now. The Shadowbinder's tower rises from Asshai's twisted streets like a black finger pointing at the perpetually gray sky. You follow her up spiral stairs worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, each step taking you deeper into a place where normal rules seem negotiable. The air grows colder as you ascend, which makes no sense, but sense is a luxury you abandoned when you decided to pursue this truth. At the top, behind a door sealed with wards that make your skin prickle, lies her private library, not the public collection that tourists and scholars browse through. This is something else entirely. Scrolls preserved in obsidian cases that should have crumbled to dust millennia ago. Books bound in materials you cannot identify and do not wish to examine too closely. Texts written in languages that predate Valyrian, that perhaps predate human speech itself. The former slave from years.What knows what you are looking for before you ask. He has seen fragments of these same histories in the forbidden archives of his former masters. The Dothraki dreamer stands by the window staring east, his hand unconsciously touching the knife at his belt. He has already seen where this knowledge leads. The visions showed him. The Shadowbinder pulls out a scroll case, black and smooth, surprisingly heavy. When she opens it, the parchment inside gleams faintly, as if the ink itself holds trapped light. The script is ancient, but she reads it as easily as you might read a letter from home. There was an empire once, not Valyria, though Valyria was great. Not Ge'ez, though Ge'ez was ancient. This empire came before them all, so far back that its existence has faded into legend, even among those who study legends for a living. The Great Empire of the Dawn, they called it. It stretched from these Shadowlands in the west all the way to years and beyond, encompassing lands we no longer have names for. The god emperors who ruled this empire were said to descend from the union of the son of the sun and the maiden maid of light. Each emperor took the name of a gemstone. The Pearl Emperor, who founded the dynasty. The Jade Emperor, who was a warrior without equal. Through the generations they ruled, each named for the stone that represented their reign. Tourmaline, onyx, topaz, opal. And then came the Amethyst Empress. The texts describe her as wise beyond measure, just, beloved by her people. Under her rule, the great empire reached its zenith. Art flourished, knowledge expanded, magic and science walked hand in hand. The world had never seen such prosperity, and perhaps never will again. She should have ruled for decades. She should have been remembered as the greatest of all the god emperors. But she had a brother. His name was the Bloodstone Emperor, and he destroyed the world. The Shadowbinder's voice grows quieter as she reads his story. How he murdered his sister, the rightful empress, and took her throne by force. How he cast down the true gods his people had worshipped for generations, the deities of light and life, and replaced them with something else. Something he found fallen from the sky. A black stone, smooth and cold, that whispered to him in dreams. He became obsessed with this stone. The texts describe his transformation from beloved prince to something darker, something hungry. He built altars to it. He performed sacrifices, at first animals, then criminals, then anyone he deemed necessary for his great work. His people began to call him the Bloodstone Emperor, not for his name, but for what ran from his altars in rivers. And then came the long night. The histories record it simply. The sun did not rise. Darkness fell across the world. Winter came and would not leave. In the far west, in the lands that would one day be called Westeros, heroes rose to fight back the darkness. In the east, entire civilizations vanished overnight. The timing is exact. The Bloodstone Emperor's reign coincided with the beginning of the long night down to the very year. But was it coincidence? The former slave speaks up, his voice rough from years of forced silence. He tells you what his masters never knew he overheard. The old families of years, the ones who trace their lineage back to the great empire, they perform rituals, strange rituals, passed down through 80 centuries without change, without question. They call it maintaining the boundary. They have done it for so long that none of them remember what boundary they maintain or why. They simply know that they must, that the cost of stopping would be absolute. The Dothraki dreamer turns from the window. His people have their own prophecy, older than the Culls, older than the first Horse Lord. When the ghost grass covers the world, all men die. He always thought it was a warning of the future, but his vision in the ghost grass showed him something different. The prophecy is backwards. It does not predict what will come. It remembers what already happened. The Shadowbinder continues reading, her fingers tracing symbols that seem to shift when you look at them directly. There are prophecies scattered through these ancient texts, written by seers who saw something coming but could not quite name it. When the sun bleeds black and shadows birth themselves, the curtain between worlds tears, the wound in the east that brought winter to the west, where the god emperor opened the door that should never open. She produces maps next, carefully preserved, showing the Shadowlands as they were before the catastrophe. You stare at them, trying to reconcile what you see with what you know. Fertile valleys, where now only ghost grass grows. Great cities, where now only ruins sleep beneath pale stalks. Rivers running clear and cold, not black and poisonous. The Empire's crown jewel sits at the center of it all. Stygai, not a corpse city then, but a living heart of civilization, a center of learning and power that made Old Town look like a village. Then the maps stop, the records end, as if someone took a knife and cut history in half. Before the long night, prosperity and life. After it, silence and shadow. The Shadowbinder decides to look deeper. She warns you first. What she is about to do is dangerous. Reaching back through time to touch echoes of the past can leave marks on the present, but you have come too far to turn back now, and she knows it. The ritual takes an hour to prepare. Obsidian dust in perfect circles, her blood mixed with powdered silver, words in a language that hurts your throat just to hear. and then she opens herself to the shadows, lets them pour through her, lets the past speak. What comes through is fragmented, violent, overwhelming. You see it through her eyes, through the eyes of shadows that witnessed and remembered. Towering cities of black stone, gleaming in actual sunlight, beautiful and alien. Dragons, not the great beasts you know from legends of Valyria, but something else, something emerging from darkness itself, being shaped, being forged. The Bloodstone Emperor standing before an altar, his robes soaked in blood that is not his own, his hands raised to the black stone that hovers above him without support. His sister's blood on the blade. The first cut, the first betrayal, the first murder of kin for power in all of history, and something responding to that blood, something vast and cold and patient, something that had been waiting in the spaces between spaces for an invitation. The Shadowbinder sees him open his mouth and speak words. The words themselves are lost, thankfully, because even the memory of them might be dangerous. But she sees the result, a tear in the air itself. Not a doorway exactly, but a wound, a rip in the fabric of what is. And through that wound, darkness pours, not the absence of light, but darkness as a thing, darkness with substance and hunger and terrible purpose. The vision fractures, screaming. Cities going dark, not by losing light, but by being consumed by something that eats existence itself. People running, fighting, dying, and worse than dying, and then silence spreading outward from Stygai, like ripples on a pond, except these ripples unmake everything they touch. The Shadowbinder collapses, blood running from her eyes and nose. The Dothraki catches her before she hits the ground. It takes her several minutes to recover enough to speak, and when she does, her first words chill you more than anything in the vision. Stygai. The answer is in Stygai, but so is the danger. The Dothraki helps her to a chair and confesses that he saw it too. During her ritual, he was pulled into the vision, saw fragments of the same truth. The ghost grass covering the world, but in reverse, as if time ran backward. He watched it grow from death itself, watched it spread from the bodies of millions who fell in a single night. The grass does not spread to kill, he realizes. It grows from where they died. It marks them. Every pale stalk, a gravestone for someone who made a choice that saved the world. The former slave is pale, shaking. He adds his own piece to this terrible puzzle. In Yi, the masters spoke of something they called the Great Sealing, a sacrifice so vast that it killed the land itself, turned paradise into wasteland. He never understood why they spoke of it with such reverence until now. They maintained the boundary because their ancestors helped create it, helped seal whatever the Bloodstone Emperor unleashed. You find yourself thinking of another legend, one you heard in Westeros. Asshai, the hero who ended the long night, Lightbringer, the sword he forged by driving it through his wife's heart. Nissa, whose sacrifice gave the blade its power. 3 attempts to forge it, 3 failures before the final success. You always thought it was metaphor, a story to teach about sacrifice and duty. But what if it was memory, distorted by time? What if the Amethyst Empress was Nissa? What if Lightbringer was not a sword but something far greater, a binding, a seal? What if the sacrifice was not one woman but an entire civilization? The Shadowbinder has recovered enough to move. She takes you to another section of her library, pulls out more texts. These are warnings written by those who came after, who discovered what happened and wanted to ensure it would never be forgotten, even as it was being forgotten. The dead city guards the wound in the world. Some doors once opened can never truly close, only held. The price paid in the Shadowlands buys safety for all lands. You read them all, and a terrible understanding settles over you like a shroud. The Bloodstone Emperor opened something. The long night was not astronomical event or natural disaster. It was invasion, intrusion, the touch of something from beyond the world reaching in. And the only way to stop it was to seal it, to bind it, to hold it back forever with the life force of millions. But forever is a long time, and seals can crack. The four of you sit in silence as the weight of what you have learned settles over you. The Dothraki breaks it first. His vision showed him more than he has said. He saw the seal weakening. He saw the door beginning to open again. He saw the White Walkers in the far west as echoes, remnants, pieces of the same darkness that was sealed here. The long summer is ending. The dragons have returned. The White Walkers march. All of it connected, all of it pointing to the same truth. The binding is failing. What was sealed 8,000 years ago is stirring. And you need to understand what it is before it breaks free, because if it does, the long night will seem like a mercy compared to what comes next. The Shadowbinder looks at each of you in turn. She is old, has seen much, has walked through shadows that would drive others mad. But there is fear in her eyes now, real and undisguised. She tells you plainly that she has seen her own death in Stygai. But she has also seen what happens if you do not go, between personal death and universal annihilation. The choice is simple even if it is not easy. The Dothraki declares that the stallion who mounts the world cannot run from his path. If his vision brought him here, then here is where he must be. The former slave was born in chains, lived in ignorance, earned his freedom through blood and pain. He will not die ignorant. He will face the truth, whatever it costs. And you have always sought knowledge. You have always believed that understanding is worth any price. Now you will test that belief in the one place where the price might be everything. Preparations begin that very hour. The Shadowbinders of Asshai provide what protection they can. Wards tattooed onto skin with ink mixed from ash and blood. Obsidian blades forged in fires that burn without fuel. Talismans carved with symbols older than language. Provisions that can survive the Shadowlands' corruption, dried and preserved in ways that seem more magic than craft. Maps are procured, drawn by those who went to Stygai and never returned. How the maps came back without their makers is a question you try not to think about too hard. Each of you writes letters, to those you love, to those you serve, to those who might continue your work if you fall. The Shadowbinder seals them with instructions to be opened if you do not return within 3 full moons. You suspect those letters will be opened. You suspect you are walking into something that does not let people walk back out. But the truth is, in Stygai, the wound is there. The sealed door. The answer to why the world nearly ended and how it was saved and whether it can be saved again. The White Walkers are marching. The long summer is ending. The dragons have returned. Time is running out, and understanding the past has become the key to surviving the future. At dawn, you board a small vessel with black sails that seem to drink in the morning light. The Ash River flows before you, dark and thick, leading east into the Shadowlands. The city of Asshai falls behind, and ahead lies only twilight and ghost grass and ruins, and at the end of it all, Stygai, the corpse city, the wound in the world, the place where the Bloodstone Emperor tore reality open, and where heroes sealed it shut at the cost of everything they were. Your journey has truly begun. The final hours in Asshai feel like walking through a dream you cannot quite wake from. You move through the city one last time, knowing that if the Shadowbinder's visions are true, you may never see it again. Strange as it sounds, the thought brings an unexpected sadness. This city of darkness and forbidden knowledge has become familiar, almost comfortable in its wrongness. The streets twist in ways that defy geometry, turning back on themselves, leading to places that should not connect. In the market square, a shadowbinder stands perfectly still, surrounded by shadows that move in patterns independent of any light source. The shadows dance and swirl, forming shapes that might be letters in a language never meant for human eyes. No one in the crowd seems to find this remarkable. In Asshai, the impossible is merely Tuesday. A red priest kneels before an eternal flame that burns without consuming its fuel, without producing heat. His eyes are closed, but his lips move constantly, speaking prophecies that no one writes down because everyone who hears them forgets immediately. Except you remember this one. Somehow it cuts through whatever makes the others forgettable. The Lord of Light's enemy, the great other, the cold darkness. Its wound is in the Shadowlands, the first wound from which all others spread. In an alley that smells of copper and ozone, blood mages ply their trade. They do not hide here. A woman offers to show you your death for the price of 3 drops of blood. You decline, but the Dothraki accepts. He pricks his finger, lets the blood fall onto a mirror of polished obsidian. The image that forms makes him smile grimly. He tells you only that he will die well, which is all a warrior can ask. Near the docks, you encounter another former slave. His scars are different from your companions, but the mark is the same, a brand on his chest, a symbol you have seen in the texts, matching the patterns carved into the black stone structures. He does not know you, has no reason to trust you, but when your companion shows his matching brand, the man speaks. The old families of Yi, he says, the ones with bloodlines reaching back to the great empire, they perform ceremonies that none of them understand anymore. Every new moon without fail for 80 centuries, they mix their blood with powdered jade and obsidian. They speak words that hurt the throat. They focus their will on something they call the boundary. Ask them what boundary, and they cannot tell you. Ask them why they do it, and they say only that they must, that their ancestors swore an oath that can never be broken, even in death. He touches the brand on his chest. We were bound to the stone itself, he explains. Our slavery served something older than any master. When he escaped, he expected freedom to feel joyous. Instead, it felt like cutting a rope that was holding something closed. He came to Asshai seeking answers, but answers here cost more than he can pay. He wishes you luck in your journey, and warns you that the Shadowlands do not let go of those who enter easily. The Ash River awaits. Your vessel is small, crewed by men whose eyes have seen too much and whose mouths say too little. They will take you as far up the river as water flows and not 1 inch further. That is the agreement. That is all anyone can ask. The river itself defies nature in ways that should not be possible. It runs black, not dark blue or brown or any natural color water can be, but true black, like ink or oil. It reflects no light. Drop a torch into it, and the flame dies instantly, snuffed out as if it never existed. The water is warm despite the cold air, viscous, wrong. It does not flow smoothly, but moves in thick pulses like blood through veins. Fish surface occasionally. They should not be called fish truly, because fish have a certain shape, a certain nature. These are fish that went wrong somewhere in their development, sprouted extra fins in places fins do not belong, grew eyes on the sides that should have no eyes, developed bioluminescent patches that glow with colors that hurt to name. They break the surface, gasp at air that seems to poison them further, and sink back into the black water. The Shadowbinder stands at the bow, staring into the water as if reading messages in its flow. She explains that the Ash River is sick, has been sick for 8,000 years. It flows from the wound, she says, from the crack in the world that the Bloodstone Emperor opened. It carries the infection outward, spreads the poison, reminds the world that something went terribly wrong in the East and that wrong has never been fully righted. As you travel, the environment shifts. The last stunted trees of Asshai give way to vegetation that should not exist. Plants that grow at angles that make your eyes hurt, branches twisting into spirals that suggest mathematics beyond human comprehension. Flowers bloom, if you can call them flowers, giving off scents that range from sweet to putrid, sometimes in the same breath. The petals are colors that do not exist in nature, or should not, purples too purple, reds too red, as if they absorbed more light than hits them. Insects the size of your fist crawl along the banks, beetles with too many legs, dragonflies with segmented wings that should not allow flight but somehow do. They pay no attention to you, focused on their own alien purposes. Birds that should migrate through this region simply do not. The sky remains empty, except for clouds that never seem to move. The silence between sounds oppresses more than any noise could. There should be ambient sound, the background hum of life, the rustle of leaves and buzz of insects and call of birds. Instead, there are pockets of pure silence, moments when even the water seems to stop moving, when sound itself seems to cease existing. Then noise returns all at once, making you flinch at its sudden presence. The temperature drops steadily as you travel east. This makes no sense geographically. You are traveling toward the equator, not away from it. The sun, when you can see it through the perpetual gray clouds, is higher in the sky, not lower. Yet frost begins to form on the boat's railing each morning. Your breath mists in air that should be warm. The Shadowbinder has no explanation except to say that natural laws apply less and less the closer you get to Stygai. And then you see it, the ghost grass. It starts as scattered patches along the riverbanks, pale stalks standing out against the dark earth. But as you travel further, the patches merge, grow, expand until they cover everything. The ghost grass stretches to the horizon in every direction, an endless sea of pale white stalks that tower over a man's head. They sway despite there being no wind. When they move, they make a sound like whispers, like thousands of voices speaking just below the threshold of hearing. The Dothraki has gone very still. His people's ultimate prophecy, their vision of the apocalypse, spreads before him made manifest. The ghost grass will cover the world, and then all men will die. He has heard this since childhood, believed it as distant warning, something to fear in the abstract future. But here it is real, present, already covering as much land as the Dothraki Sea itself. He shares more of the prophecy now, details he never spoke before. The grass does not spread to kill. His people teach. It grows where the life force of the earth has been consumed utterly. It marks the places where death came so completely that even the soil remembers. Where the grass grows, nothing else can. Not crops, not trees, not even weeds. Only the ghost grass, feeding on whatever dark energy lingers in earth that watched millions die. You set up camp at the edge of the ghost grass plains. The Shadowbinder draws protective circles using powdered obsidian mixed with her own blood. The powder hisses when it touches the ground, as if the earth itself rejects it, but the circle holds within its boundaries. You can breathe easier, think clearer. Outside, the ghost grass presses close, curious, patient. Night falls, or rather the twilight deepens into something marginally darker. Strange phenomena begin almost immediately. Shadows detach from objects and move independently. Your shadow falls to the north, but the Dothraki's falls east, and the former slave seems to fall in multiple directions at once, as if he casts several shadows from a single light source. The shadows move before you do, anticipating motion, or perhaps causing it. Whispers drift through the ghost grass. You strain to hear words, to understand language, but the sounds slip away from comprehension. They might be words in languages that died before humans learned to speak. They might be the wind. They might be the grass itself, sharing secrets with the darkness. Time feels elastic, stretched thin in some moments, and compressed in others. You sit down to rest, and the Shadowbinder says an hour has passed. It felt like minutes. The Dothraki stands watch, and when he is relieved, he swears it has been mere moments, but the stars have wheeled significantly across the sky. The former slave notices something buried in the ghost grass near the camp's edge. He ventures just outside the protective circle, reaches down, brushes away pale stalks, an obsidian pillar carved with warnings, half buried in earth that has tried to swallow it. The Shadowbinder comes to translate, her fingers tracing symbols that seem to shift and change under her touch. Boundary of the sealed land, warning to the living, do not proceed. The binding must hold, but also, carved smaller, almost hidden, forgive us, remember us. We chose this. The four of you stare at those words in silence. Forgive us, remember us. We chose this. Not a curse, not a catastrophe that happened to people. A choice. A decision made by millions to sacrifice themselves, to become the seal, to hold back whatever the Bloodstone Emperor unleashed. The ghost grass grows from heroes, not victims. Every pale stalk a memorial to someone who chose extinction over universal annihilation. The greatest act of courage in history, and the world has forgotten entirely, dismisses their sacrifice as legend, calls their graveyard cursed. Sleep comes poorly that night. You all dream, though in the morning, none of you can quite remember what you dreamed. Only fragments remain. Cities burning with black fire, a sun going dark, screaming that goes on forever. And through it all, a sense of something vast and cold and patient, watching from a distance that might be measured in miles or dimensions or something else entirely. When dawn comes, such as it is, you break camp and prepare to venture deeper. The ghost grass sea stretches before you. Somewhere in its depths lie the ruins of the great empire. Somewhere beyond that lies Stygai, and in Stygai, the wound, the door, the seal that is cracking after 8,000 years. The truth waits in the darkness, and you walk toward it willingly, knowing that understanding might cost everything, but that ignorance will certainly cost more. 3 days into the ghost grass, the Dothraki's foot catches on something that should not be there. He curses, stumbles, catches himself on a pale stalk that bends but does not break. Kneeling, he brushes away the grass, and his expression changes from annoyance to wonder. The stone, cut stone, not rough or natural, but precisely shaped, edges meeting at perfect right angles. He clears more grass, revealing a foundation, the corner of what was once a building. The former slave joins him, and together they expose more of the hidden city, because that is what this is. Not a single structure, but the bones of an entire settlement, buried beneath 80 centuries of ghost grass, waiting for someone to remember it existed. You all begin excavating carefully, treating each discovery like the treasure it is. Pottery shards emerge first, decorated with intricate geometric patterns that speak of sophisticated artistic sensibility. The designs incorporate mathematics, you realize, golden ratios, and fractal patterns that would not be rediscovered in the West for millennia. Whoever made these understood principles of beauty and proportion that the Citadel still struggles to explain. Weapon fragments come next. Metal alloys that you cannot identify, that should not exist given what you know of metallurgy. The edges, even after 8,000 years, hold a keenness that puts Valyrian steel to shame. The former slave examines them closely, compares them to techniques he learned in Yi. The craftsmanship matches, he says, but exceeds anything his people can produce today. This is the source, the original, from which all Eastern metalworking descends. Jewelry still gleams in the dirt, in gold that has not tarnished despite lying in poisoned earth for longer than most civilizations exist. Jewels that glow faintly even in the dim light filtering through the ghost grass, as if they absorbed the sun long ago and have been releasing it slowly ever since. One piece, a crown or circlet, bears an inscription, The Shadowbinder translates it as belonging to a merchant prince of the Tourmaline Emperor's court. The Tourmaline Emperor reigned 3,000 years before Valyria was founded. Coins scatter through the ruins like seeds. Most are too degraded to read, but a few preserve their images. One shows a face you recognize from the texts, the Bloodstone Emperor. His features are hard, cruel, beautiful in a way that suggests danger. On the reverse, a symbol that makes your vision swim when you look at it too long. The same symbol carved into the black stone structures, the same symbol branded onto slaves who served the boundary. The ruins speak of sudden abandonment, not gradual decline, not slow evacuation, but instant cessation. Cooking pots still rest on hearths. The meals inside long since turned to dust, but the arrangement unmistakable. Tools lie beside unfinished work, as if the craftsman set them down meaning to return in a moment. In one building, you find children's toys carved from wood that has somehow not rotted, sitting in a corner where a child placed them 8,000 years ago. No bodies, no bones, no skeletons or remains of any kind. People lived here, worked here, raised families here, and then they simply were not here anymore. The former slave draws the obvious comparison to Pompeii, where ash preserved the last moments of a civilization. But there is no ash here, no volcanic destruction, no signs of fire or flood or earthquake. The people vanished, leaving everything behind except themselves. The pattern extends across the ruins. Building after building, home after home, all abandoned mid-activity. The absence of conventional warfare becomes more apparent the more you explore. No broken walls from siege engines, no scorch marks from fires, no scattered weapons dropped in panic. Whatever happened here did not come from human attackers. It came from something else. And then you find the glass. It covers a wide plaza, or what was once a plaza. Obsidian glass, black and smooth, flowing in patterns that suggest extreme heat or energy focused with impossible precision. But this is not volcanic glass. The composition is wrong, the patterns too regular. The Shadowbinder kneels beside it, running her hands over the surface, and announces that this is magical residue. Energy so intense that it transforms stone into glass, heat that burned without fire, power that left its mark on reality itself. The glass flows in shapes, ritual circles, binding runes, containment geometries. You trace them out, recognizing patterns from the texts you studied in Asshai, but these are far more complex, layered, sophisticated. This was not destruction. This was working, magic on a scale that makes anything attempted in the modern world look like a child's fumbling. But the most disturbing discovery waits in the central square, where the glass is thickest. Shadow patterns burned into the stone beneath the glass, like the atomic shadows at Hiroshima, but reversed. Not light shadows of bodies, but darkness shadows, blackness seared into light stone. Silhouettes of people frozen in their final moments. Some are working, some are working, some are running, some are praying, two are embracing. The shadows are too deep, too dark. They should have faded over 8 millennia, but they remain as black as the day they were formed. And they move slightly when you are not looking directly at them. Turn your head, and from the corner of your eye you see them shift, adjust, orient themselves toward you, face them directly, and they are still, again. The Shadowbinder reaches out slowly, touches one of the shadows. Her hand passes through it, meeting no resistance, but she gasps and jerks back as if burned. Her eyes are wide, pupils dilated, breathing ragged. When she can speak again, her words come out shaken. "These are not shadows of the dead," she says. "These are the dead. Their essence, their being, caught and held at the moment of transformation. They are neither alive nor dead, neither present nor absent. They are between, and they have been between for 8,000 years. She needs to know more. She needs to understand what happened here. and there is only one way to do it. The ghost grass itself holds memory, she explains. Plants absorb from the earth, and earth remembers everything that happens on it. With the right ritual, the right sacrifice, she can commune with the grass, let it show her what it witnessed. You try to dissuade her. The ritual she describes is dangerous, opens her mind to forces that might overwhelm it, might change her in ways that cannot be undone. But she is determined. You came for truth. Truth is here. She will pay the price to obtain it. The ritual takes time to prepare. She walks through the ghost grass, selecting specific stalks with care you cannot fathom. She cuts them with an obsidian blade, whispering apologies, thanks, requests for permission. When she has gathered enough, she weaves them into a circle, places it on the ground in the center of the plaza, and sits within it. What follows is difficult to watch. She opens veins in her wrists, lets blood flow onto the ghost grass circle. The grass absorbs it eagerly, drinking it in, and begins to glow, not bright, but noticeable, a soft white luminescence that grows stronger as she begins to chant. The words are in no language you know, might not be language at all, but pure sound shaped into meaning. The glow spreads from the circle outward through the ghost grass like ripples on a pond. As it touches each stalk, that stalk brightens momentarily, adding its light to the working. Within minutes, the entire field around you glows, a sea of pale fire that gives off no heat but immense presence. And then you see it too, all of you. The ritual pulls you in, whether you wish it or not, shares its visions with everyone present. The ghost grass shows you what it remembers, what it has held secret for 80 centuries. A great civilization. Not ruins, not fragments, but alive, thriving, beautiful beyond words. Cities of white stone, gleaming in actual sunlight, not the perpetual twilight you know. Gardens where flowers bloom in colors nature intended. Markets full of goods from across a unified empire. Children laughing, playing, innocent of the doom racing toward them. This is the great empire of the dawn at its height, the golden age before the fall. The vision shifts. Years pass in moments. You see the change begin, subtle at first. The Amethyst Empress rules wisely, but her brother grows darker. He spends time alone with the black stone that fell from the sky. He stops attending court. He starts gathering followers, people attracted to the darkness he radiates. Temples to the sun gods stand empty, while new shrines are built, shrines to something else, something cold. Then comes the murder. You witness it through the grass's memory, feel it like a wound in reality itself. The Bloodstone Emperor stands over his sister's body, her blood pooling on marble floors, and something fundamental breaks. First murder of kin for power, first betrayal of that magnitude. The world shudders. The vision accelerates. Temples converted to places of sacrifice. Blood flowing in quantities that staggers the imagination. The emperor standing before the black stone altar, his hands raised, his voice speaking words that hurt to hear even in memory. Stars beginning to disappear from the sky, one by one. Darkness spreading not from natural causes, but from the emperor's workings. And people beginning to understand that their world is ending. But then you see something unexpected, a gathering, not people fleeing in panic, but assembling with purpose, millions of them, walking from across the empire, converging on the heart of the Shadowlands. They know what is coming. They know what must be done. Leaders stand before the masses, explaining the door has been opened. Closing it requires everything. Who will stand with us? Every hand rises, young and old, rich and poor, warrior and scholar, farmer and merchant. They do not hesitate. They do not argue. They understand the mathematics of sacrifice. Their deaths, horrible as they will be, buy life for everyone else. Better we end than everything ends. You watch them walk into the darkness that spreads from Stygai. They walk singing, they walk holding hands, they walk knowing they will not die exactly, but transform into the seal itself, into the barrier that holds back the void. They walk into shadow and become shadow, their individual consciousness merging into collective will, their bodies becoming the binding that saves the world. The ghost grass grows from their choice. Every stalk marks where someone fell, someone chose, someone sacrificed everything so that distant strangers they would never meet might see the sun tomorrow. The grass captures and holds their determination, their love of life, their willingness to give up life so that life might continue. The vision releases you slowly, gently, like waking from deep sleep. The shadow binder sits motionless, tears streaming down her face, blood still seeping from her wrists. The Dothraki is on his knees, hands pressed to the earth, shaking. The former slave has his eyes closed, lips moving in what might be prayer or might be simply trying to process what he witnessed. You all understand now. The long night did not happen to these people. They chose it, weaponized it, used it to seal the door that should never have been opened. The catastrophe was not failure, but desperate success. They saved the world by sacrificing their piece of it. The timeline makes perfect sense now. The long night began here and spread westward, in the far west. In Westeros, they experienced only the edge of it, the shadow of the true darkness. Here at the epicenter, the full weight fell. And it fell on people who stood willingly beneath it, who let it transform them into eternal guardians. The ghost grass is not a warning of future apocalypse. It is a memorial to past heroism, the greatest heroes in history, and the world has forgotten them entirely. But one question remains unanswered, one piece that does not fit. If the door was sealed, if the darkness was contained, why do you feel so certain that it is stirring again? Why does the Shadowbinder's vision show the binding weakening? Why have you been drawn here if the crisis was resolved 8,000 years ago? You discover the answer in the ancient observatory you find half buried in the ghost grass. Star charts preserved in obsidian glass show astronomical calculations of breathtaking precision. They predicted the celestial event that the Bloodstone Emperor used to amplify his ritual. But they also show something else. Notes in the margins, increasingly desperate. They knew it was coming. They tried to prepare. They attempted to prevent it. They failed to prevent it, so they did the only thing they could. They contained it, but containment is not solution. Containment is buying time, and time eventually runs out. The four of you stand in the ruins of the greatest civilization that ever existed, surrounded by ghost grass that glows faintly in the twilight, understanding that you have learned only half the story. You know what happened. You know why it happened, but you do not yet know if it is still happening, if the seal still holds, if the binding is strong enough to last another 8,000 years. There is only one way to find out. The Stygai waits deeper in the shadow, the corpse city where the door was opened and then sealed, the wound in the world, the place where truth and terror meet. You gather your supplies, strengthen your wards as much as possible, and prepare to leave the ghost grass behind. Ahead lies darker territory, more dangerous truths, but you have come too far to turn back. The dead city calls, and you must answer. Morning in the ruins finds you piecing together fragments of truth. The former slave speaks first. His voice measured, all evidence points to cosmic catastrophe, he argues. A meteorite falls from the sky. The Bloodstone Emperor becomes obsessed. A celestial event occurs. Extreme heat melts stone to glass. A civilization vanishes overnight. The long night spreads as ash blocks the sun. Natural disaster explains everything without requiring belief in forces beyond nature. The Dothraki adds his observations. His people sing of the day stars fell, and the world bled. Fire from the sky, features in every culture's legends. The ghost grass could be mutation, adapted to poisoned soil. The glass patterns might be where impact energy focused through natural processes. Even the shadow silhouettes have explanation. Extreme heat flash burning images into stone, like lightning creating glass. The sense they move might be peripheral vision tricks, minds finding patterns in darkness. The theory satisfies something in you that craves rational explanation. Natural disasters are comprehensible, follow rules, can be studied. A meteorite impact allows you to catalog this as historical tragedy, over and safe. The long night was astronomical event. The Shadowlands are its crater, terrible but finite, cannot happen again. You can almost convince yourself, but the Shadowbinder has been silent, staring at the shadow silhouettes. When she finally speaks, her voice cuts through your comfortable theory like a blade. No. She walks to the nearest shadow pattern, kneels. Look at the placement, she says. These people were walking towards something deliberately, not fleeing a blast. Their postures show determination, not terror. She points to the ritual circles in glass. Natural processes do not create containment geometries. Physical forces do not arrange themselves into binding runes. This glass was made by working by magic on a scale that makes modern sorcery look like candle flames. The Dothraki adds his doubts. If simple disaster, why do warnings speak of sealing and binding? You do not seal impact craters. The language suggests consciousness, something that can be contained but not destroyed. The former slave delivers the killing blow. The masters of Years still perform rituals 8,000 years later. Why? If the threat was natural disaster, his people maintain meaningless traditions across millennia, only if they serve real purpose. The rituals maintain something. They hold something back. You venture deeper, find a temple partially intact. Inside, murals destroy any hope of natural explanation. The Bloodstone Emperor does not appear as victim but as architect, as summoner. The sequence is clear. His sister's murder, blood collected in black stone vessels, sacrifices arranged in patterns, the meteorite positioned at an altar's center. The Emperor with arms raised, calling to something beyond the world. The murals show what answered. You cannot look directly at those images. Your eyes slide away, refusing to process shapes in too many dimensions. Darkness with substance and hunger, the opposite of existence pouring through a tear in reality, consuming everything not by destroying, but by unmaking, causing things to cease to have ever been. Then the response, survivors gathering, not fleeing, performing counter-ritual, using the darkness itself as seal material, walking into it willingly, transforming, becoming the barrier, the binding taking shape, powered by millions, turning the Shadowlands into prison against the whole in reality. The Dothraki speaks first. After you emerge, that was not a man trying to stop disaster. That was a man who caused it, who wanted it, who succeeded. The former slave adds another layer. The master's rituals suddenly make sense. They are maintenance. Their ancestors helped create the binding. The rituals pass down responsibility, ensure each generation feeds the ward with life energy. You find sealed chamber beneath the temple, hidden under the altar. Obsidian chains cross the entrance, glowing faintly. Seals cover every surface. Below lies the path to the wound. Only the desperate or foolish proceed. The former slave suggests possibility. None want to consider. What if the meteorite carried something? A corruption that twisted the Emperor's mind, made him its tool. Perhaps he was victim as much as villain, controlled by forces he thought he controlled. Historical accounts suggest his personality changed after finding the black stone. But the Shadowbinder shakes her head. She has seen his face in visions, looked into his eyes. No confusion there, no possession, He knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted to tear reality open. Believed beyond existence lay something purer. He sought to unmake the world deliberately. Whether villain or victim hardly matters now. The door was opened. The void poured through. Millions died to seal it. The question remains. Is the seal still holding? Can it continue? What happens when it fails? The Shadowbinder performs brief ritual, touches the sealed chamber's chains. Her reaction tells everything before she speaks. It is awake. Whatever was sealed is conscious and waiting, and it knows we are here. The Dothraki checks his weapons, though you all know knives mean nothing against what waits ahead. The former slave says prayer to gods he no longer believes in. You make notes, documenting everything, ensuring if you do not return, knowledge might. You leave the temple and ghost grass behind. Ahead lies darker territory. Stygai rises in the distance. Black spires against blacker sky. City of the dead guarding the wound. You walk toward it knowing comfortable theories have died. That truth is far worse than natural disaster. That something deliberately unleashed still waits behind a seal that is cracking. The journey to the corpse city has begun. The landscape shifts from eerie to actively hostile. Perpetual twilight deepens into something approaching true darkness. Not merely absence of light, but presence of something that devours it. Even at midday, the world exists in near total blackness. Your torches provide small bubbles that seem to shrink as you travel, as if darkness pushes back. The temperature plummets impossibly. You travel south toward warmer latitudes, yet frost forms on your clothing. Your breath mists in air that should be warm. The former slave mutters about the master's teachings. Cold is absence of fire. Darkness is absence of light. Here those absences have become presences. This place actively opposes warmth and brightness, works to eliminate them from existence. You discover the Ash River's source. Not a spring or lake, but a great crack in the earth, a chasm wider than any canyon. And from this crack, the river flows upward, defying gravity, defying sense. Black liquid oozes from the depths, like blood from a wound, warm, despite cold air, wrong in every way. Sound emerges from the depths, low, rhythmic breathing. Something below breathes with lungs, the size of mountains. The vibration reverberates through stone beneath your feet. The Dothraki speaks what you all think. The world has a wound, and it breathes out poison. Shadow entities begin appearing. Not illusions, but real, darker than surrounding shadow, taking vaguely human shapes with wrong proportions. They surround your group without seeming to move, simply becoming present. The Shadowbinder attempts communication, opening her mind in ways that risk madness. The entities respond, sharing fragments. They were people once, citizens of Stygai. When the Bloodstone Emperor opened the door, they opposed him, tried to stop him, failed. When the binding was created, they became trapped between life and death, aware and alone for 8,000 years. They serve as guards now. Turn back those who approach without proper purpose, but they sense yours is true. They let you pass. Stygai appears like hallucination made solid. Black spires rise against darker sky. Architecture defying understanding. Towers curve in ways that should topple them. Bridges connect to nothing. Buildings fold into dimensions you cannot see. The scale staggers comprehension. This city held millions. Structures rising higher than the wall, streets wide enough for armies. The black stone here differs from Asshai. It actively absorbs light, creating halos of darkness. The surface ripples when viewed peripherally. Touch it, and it feels warm, the warmth of fever rather than fire. An ancient obsidian road leads to Stygai's gates, perfect despite its age. Pillars line it, carved with warnings. The binding must hold. Death walks these stones. Turn back. One recent pillar warns that the shadow stirs, the binding weakens, remember the price. Psychological effects intensify. Time loses coherence. You walk for hours, look back, realize you have come only yards. Memory becomes slippery. You struggle to remember why you are here, even your own name. The place wants you to forget. The Shadowbinder explains normal magic fails here. This place is pre-magic, from before rules were established. You can only trust will, determination, connection to each other. The gates stand open, as if welcoming visitors. You pass through together. Air changes immediately, thicker, harder to breathe. Darkness deepens, becoming almost tactile. Silence is absolute, aggressive, wrong. Your footsteps make no sound. Words come out muffled. The city consumes vibration as it consumes light. Streets spread empty but preserved. Buildings intact, doors closed, windows dark. No rubble, no decay. Homes contain furniture, tables set for meals never eaten, beds made but never slept in, workshops with tools waiting for craftsmen who will never return. These were people living normal lives before the choice came. The former slave discovers what might be a library. Books crumble to dust when touched, but a few sealed in glass survive. Instructions he translates, procedures for maintaining the binding, rituals that must be performed. A manual for future generations on keeping the seal strong. But clearly the manual was not passed down successfully, and knowledge faded. You discover the workshop district, the dragon hatchery, undeniable in its purpose. Obsidian cases contain dragon egg fragments. Diagrams show processes for awakening fire within stone, for bonding dragon to human will. Dragons were created here, transformed from something natural into living weapons against darkness. Shadow entities fill the streets now. Hundreds, thousands. The deeper you travel, the more crowded they become. The Shadowbinder communes briefly. They are the citizens who stayed, who transformed, who became the seal. Not dead, but not alive. Between, always between, for eternity. Their message is simple. We remain as warning. We remain as guards. Tell the world. The binding needs help. Find the heroes. Unite the powers. At the city's heart rises the temple complex. A ziggurat of black stone. Massive beyond reason. Geometry that aches to perceive. The same stone found in Asshai, in Yin, in the High Tower's foundations. All connected. The great empire built outposts everywhere. Created a network. Stairs lead upward, thousands of steps, each carved with images telling the story. The empire's rise, golden age, betrayal, catastrophe, response, sacrifice, binding. By the top, you have lived through the entire history. The inner courtyard opens to black sky. Statues ring the space, depicting god emperors through generations, ending with the Amethyst Empress, beautiful and tragic. The Bloodstone Emperor's statue stands apart, defaced but present, facing inward. His expression shows ecstasy. He believed he was ascending. At the courtyard's center stands the sealed door, not wood or stone but compressed darkness, shadow made solid. Chains of dragon glass cross it, glowing faintly. Seals cover every surface, written in blood that remains red, sealed, bound, never to open. Cold radiates from the door, not winter cold but cold of absence, of void. From beyond comes sound, faint breathing, patient, eternal. Something behind the door exists, has been there 8,000 years, waiting for the seal to break. You stand before the wound in the world, understanding complete. This is where the Bloodstone Emperor tore reality open, and where heroes sealed it shut. The source of the long night, the origin of darkness. And the seal is cracking. The chains show corrosion. The seals fade. The door bulges as if something presses from the other side. The Dothraki whispers what you all think. The seals are cracking. The Shadowbinder kneels before the sealed door, studying the seals with eyes that see beyond the physical. What she finds makes her gasp. The seals are layered, added over millennia. Some are 8,000 years old from the binding itself. Others are 5,000, added by Valyrian dragonlords. Still others only centuries old, placed by Shadowbinders who made pilgrimage to shore up weakening defenses. She reads them aloud, translating languages, living and dead. The oldest seal tells the story in desperate urgency. In the year of the Dark Sun, the god Emperor opened the Void Gate. The world began to end. We who remained gave our blood, our souls, our existence to seal the door. May it hold eternal, may we be remembered. A Valyrian seal adds another layer. We found the sealed city and understood what happened. Our dragonlords were forged to hold this boundary. We thought we created dragons through genius, but the knowledge came from here. We add our power to the binding. The door must never open again. A more recent seal from Asshai warns that the seal weakens with time and forgetting. We Shadowbinders pledge eternal vigil. As long as one remembers, the binding holds. The most recent seal chills you to your core. Written only centuries ago in multiple languages, the shadow stirs, the binding weakens. Remember the price. Find the heroes. Ice and fire must unite, or all will fall to darkness. The Shadowbinder performs another communion, touching the magic woven into the seal. What she discovers makes her weep. The Bloodstone Emperor did not die in the catastrophe. When he murdered his sister, used her blood to amplify his ritual, spoke words that tore reality open, he succeeded. He opened doorway to realm beyond the world. But what lay beyond was not the higher plane of gods he expected. It was the void, the opposite of creation, the nothing that existed before existence began. The void is not empty space or darkness. It is presence, active, anti-existence, uncreation with will and hunger. Where it touches reality, reality ceases, not destroyed but unmade, caused to never have been. The long night was not darkness covering the sun. It was the sun beginning to cease existing, light starting to unmake itself. The long night spread from this point outward. Here at Epicenter, the effect was total and immediate. The Shadowlands were erased. People did not die. They ceased. Cities did not crumble. They unbecame. Reality itself started to unravel. In far west Westeros, they experienced only the edge. The White Walkers were created there, beings of void-touched ice, remnants of the long night's passage. They are not separate from what happened here. They are echoes, fragments, pieces of the same wound manifesting on the opposite side of the world. The survivors understood conventional means could not close what had been opened. You cannot seal a hole in reality with stone or magic. The void consumes those. The only thing that can hold back uncreation is creation itself, life, will, the determination to exist. So they performed the greatest magic in history. They walked into the void's touch, willingly. Millions of them, every survivor. They transformed their life force, their will to be rather than not be, became the seal itself. Each person became thread in cosmic ward, a binding that says existence here and no further. The Shadowlands are not dead. They are the barrier. The darkness here is not void's darkness, but darkness of the seal holding the void back. The ghost grass grows from millions' life force, marking where they stood, where they chose, where they became eternal. The ash river flows from the crack because the seal is not perfect. Some void essence leaks through, poisoned and filtered, but still present. Dragons were created during this binding. Fire is opposite of void in every way. Void is cold, fire is heat. Void is stillness, fire is motion. Void is uncreation, Fire is transformation. Original dragons were forged specifically to oppose void essence, to burn back darkness, living weapons against what should not be fought. Valyria inherited these dragons without understanding their purpose, found abandoned eggs, hatched them, used them to conquer. The dragonlords never knew their greatest weapons were created for war against the void itself. That is why dragons instinctively feared the Shadowlands. They remembered what they were created to fight. The legend of Azor Ahai originates here. Azor Ahai was not a person but a title, the leader of those who forged the binding. Lightbringer was not a sword. It was the binding itself, the seal that brought back dawn. The story of tempering the blade 3 times mirrors 3 attempts to seal the door. Nissa's sacrifice represents the millions who walked into darkness. Plunging sword through her heart symbolizes willing sacrifice, the choice to give everything so something could continue to exist. Her cry that broke the moon represents the Shadowlands dying, millions ceasing, so billions might continue. The White Walker's connection becomes clear. They are not separate threats but the same threat manifesting differently. The void touched both sides of the world. Here it was sealed completely. There it was merely pushed back, creating beings that carry its essence. When one wound weakens, the other stirs. They are connected through the void between them. And the Bloodstone Emperor himself is not dead. Death would have been mercy. When the door was sealed, he was caught between worlds, trapped in space between existence and void. For 8,000 years, he has existed neither alive nor dead, conscious and suffering beyond description. His consciousness, twisted by millennia of torment, now works with the void. He pushes from the other side, tries to break the seal, wants everything to end, wants all existence to join him in eternal nothing. You stand before the sealed door, full horror settling over you. One man's ambition nearly destroyed reality. Millions sacrificed themselves, became eternal guardians. Their sacrifice has worked for 8,000 years, buying time, allowing civilization to continue. But seals weaken, magic fades. The world forgets, and forgetting weakens the binding because it is powered by collective will, by humanity's determination to exist. As people dismiss the long night as legend, as they forget the sacrifice, the seal cracks. The door bulges, the chains corrode. The void waits patiently, knowing eventually the binding will fail, unless renewed, unless new heroes make new sacrifices, unless the world remembers why existence matters. You understand now why you were drawn here. The binding is failing. Not tomorrow, but soon. Perhaps 1,000 years remain. Perhaps only 100. Perhaps less. The world needs to know. The powerful need to understand. The heroes need to be found. Because if the binding breaks, the long night will seem like mercy. Not death for all things, but uncreation, erasure of everything that ever was. The greatest mystery stands revealed, and with it comes terrible responsibility. You must carry this knowledge back to the world. You must convince the skeptical and powerful. You must find those who can help before time runs out. The truth of the Shadowlands is more terrible than any legend dared suggest. The Shadowbinder's hands tremble as she examines the cracking seals more closely. Her assessment is devastating. Perhaps 1,000 years remain, perhaps only 100, perhaps less. The binding is failing, and she can explain exactly why. The magic is dying in the world. Fewer Shadowbinders practice the old ways. Red priests lose followers. Warlocks fade into obscurity. Dragons were extinct until recently. Valyrian steel can no longer be forged, the knowledge lost. Blood magic practitioners are hunted as abominations. Each generation has less power than the one before. But magic alone is not enough. The binding requires something more fundamental. It is powered by collective human will, by the determination to exist rather than cease, by conscious choice to be rather than not be. As people forget the long night, dismiss it as myth, stop believing in the danger, the seal weakens. Each generation that cares less about the threat makes the binding more fragile. And there is active corruption. The Bloodstone Emperor pushes from the other side. The void is patient, probing for weaknesses. Every negative emotion, every cruelty, every moment of despair feeds the void's influence. War, suffering, darkness in human hearts weakens the barrier. The timeline connects to everything happening now. The long summer ending means the binding's energy is depleting. This summer lasted years beyond normal, draining more magic than ever before. The White Walkers returning are not separate threat, but the same wound finding new cracks. Dragons reborn are the world's desperate autonomous response, hatching because the world needs them whether their mother knew it or not. Every 8,000 years, the binding must be renewed. The last full renewal was the original Long Night when the seal was created. Since then, only minor reinforcements by Valyria, Shadowbinders, others, but never complete restoration. Each cycle leaves the seal slightly weaker. This cycle might be the last. The former slave understands now. All the signs are there. Three-eyed ravens waking, red priests seeing visions, prophecies surfacing everywhere. The prince that was promised, the song of ice and fire, all warnings in different languages. The Game of Thrones is distraction from the real war. The true enemy is not other humans, but the void waiting to consume all. The Shadowbinder touches the door one final time, receives a vision that makes her cry out. Behind the door is not empty void, but realm of hungry nothing. The Bloodstone Emperor trapped in between, whispering, "Free me, join me, perfect nothing, end suffering." The temptation is powerful. The void promises peace, end to pain, release from existence. But it is lie. Not peace, but erasure. Not death, but uncreation. If the binding breaks, the void spreads slowly at first, then exponentially. Everything it touches ceases to have existed. Not just killed, but erased from reality, from memory, from possibility. To reinforce the binding requires sacrifice. Blood of kings, death of dragons, will of millions, or permanent solution. Close the door completely by uniting all magic in the world, dragons and ice magic, fire and darkness, all opposites working together. Forge new Lightbringer, not as weapon, but as healing, stitching reality back together. It can be done without destroying another civilization, but requires unity of all kingdoms, all magic users, all people, requires knowledge of what they face, requires sacrifice from some so all can survive. The guardian shadows send final message through the Shadowbinder. The age of heroes must return, or the age of nothing begins. Ice and fire must unite. Find the heroes, unite the powers, or all that we sacrificed will be for nothing. The mission is clear. Return to the world. Warn everyone. Find those who can help. Unite the divided before time runs out. The clock is ticking. Final hours in Stygai are spent gathering evidence. You copy texts, sketch murals, collect fragments. The Shadowbinder creates a memory crystal, storing visions of everything witnessed. You must bring proof to convince others. Each companion processes the magnitude differently. The Dothraki speaks first. My people sing of the end of the world. I have seen it. It is patient and inevitable unless we act. The former slave adds quietly, I was slave to men. Now I understand we are all slaves to time, to forgetting, to the slow crack of the seal. The Shadowbinder looks at you all. Knowledge is burden, but ignorance is death. We must tell the world despite the wait. You debate strategy, who to tell first. Westeros has White Walkers as proof but is distracted by the Game of Thrones. Masters do not believe in magic. Kings care about crowns, not cosmic threats. Essos understands magic, but is fragmented. Yi has cultural memory, but is isolationist. Decision is made. All of them simultaneously. You will split up, each companion taking different path. The burden of truth settles over you like shroud. You wanted to be remembered as great scholar. Now you will be dismissed as madman prophesying doom. But you must try anyway. The Shadowbinder performs final ritual, communing with the guardian shadows. They share one last vision, the original sacrifice. Millions assembling voluntarily, walking into darkness singing their last thoughts so that our children's children might see the sun. 8,000 years of eternal vigil without rest or thanks. These are the greatest heroes in history. They have no names, no songs. True heroism means saving everyone forever while being forgotten completely. You each leave offerings. The Dothraki cuts his braid. The former slave breaks his chains. You seal a scroll with their full story, swearing it will be remembered. The Shadowbinder creates a ward stone, adding her power to the binding. The offerings are absorbed into the seals, strengthening them slightly. Not much, but something. You plan your missions. Protagonist will sail to Old Town, infiltrate the Citadel, convince Archmasters, send ravens to every lord. The Dothraki will ride to Vase Dothrak, share visions with Dosh Khaleen, unite the Khalasars. The former slave will find Daenerys Targaryen, teach freed people the truth. The Shadowbinder will return to Asshai, organize magical network, maintain vigil. You will reunite in 1 year if the world still stands. Obstacles are acknowledged. Many will refuse to believe. Kings care about power. Common folk cannot think beyond today. Time runs out, but doing nothing guarantees failure. Yet there is hope. Dragons returned. White Walkers, undeniable. Prophecies surfacing. Time of convergence. The world has overcome before and can overcome again. Each of you transformed by this journey. Left seeking adventure. Return understanding sacrifice and duty. Individual lives matter less than collective survival, but individual choices tip the balance. You stand one final time before the sealed door. If we fail, everything ceases to have existed. Failure is not option when cost is everything. The knowledge as gift and curse can never unknow, never rest, but have purpose. Some are chosen not for strength, but for timing. You happen to be here to learn. Now you must be here to teach. The exit from Stygai begins. Dawn breaks over Asshai. After weeks in darkness, first true sunlight in so long, warm on skin, bright in eyes, beautiful beyond words. The contrast strikes you. Horror behind, beauty ahead, bridge between. You stand on Asshai's docks, 4 companions ready to separate, ships prepared, horses saddled, supplies gathered, each ready for their mission. Moment of unity before divergence. You exchange tokens. The Dothraki gives each a strand of his braid, symbol of bond. The former slave gives pieces of his broken chains, symbol of choice. You give copies of your journal, symbol of memory. The Shadowbinder gives small shadow stones for communication over distance. Promises are made. When the binding needs us, we answer. We reunite in 1 year or at Stygai. If the world stands, if one falls, others continue. We do not stop until the world knows, until powers unite, until the wound heals. Hands clasped, oath spoken in multiple languages. Reflection on the journey. What began as curiosity became duty. Started as historians, become heralds, sought mystery, found purpose. Sometimes the greatest journeys change not where you stand, but why you stand there. The Shadowbinder offers final blessing. You carry the shadow's memory and the light's promise. Walk in light, but remember darkness. Forget either, and both consume you. The guardians watch over you. Individual farewells are brief, but meaningful. No tears. This is not ending, but beginning. Farewell to Asshai, city of mysteries, city of guardians, city of the boundary. You understand now why no children are born here. Asshai itself is part of the binding, absorbing void energy. Every Shadowbinder, every resident serves the seal, knowing or unknowing. This city is not cursed, but blessed, holy ground. The journey home begins. Your ship sails west toward Old Town, white sails against blue sky. The Dothraki rides northeast toward the Dothraki Sea, horse hooves drumming hope across plains. The former slave walks north toward Slaver's Bay and Daenerys. The Shadowbinder returns into Asshai's shadows, organizing the eternal watch. Meditation on the cosmos. Somewhere beyond sight, the binding holds. Somewhere in Stygai's darkness, guardian spirits stand watch. Somewhere in the future, heroes will answer the call. Everywhere in every choice to love, to fight, to live, the binding strengthens. This mystery solved reveals greater mysteries. Where did the black stone truly originate? What exists in the void realm? How many other bindings exist in the world? But you cannot solve everything. You can only do your part. Passing knowledge forward is enough. Trust in the next generation to continue the work. Final vision comes as sleep approaches, gift from the guardian spirits, the Shadowlands as they were. Green, thriving, beautiful, the moment of choice. Better we end than everything ends. The binding complete, darkness preserving, not destroying, their spirits content. We did it, worth it. Thank you for remembering. Now rest. We keep watch. We always keep watch. Sleep well. Stars wheel overhead, ancient and constant. Oceans lap at shores, endless and patient. The world continues, fragile and precious. In the Shadowlands the binding holds. Beyond, darkness waits. Between, heroes stand, forever, as it must be. If you have journeyed with us into these deepest mysteries, subscribe to continue exploring the hidden truths. The shadows hold many more secrets yet to be revealed. Until next time, sleep well knowing the binding holds. The God stands eternal. Let yourself drift now into dreams of ancient guardians, into space between knowledge and mystery, where shadows protect and light endures, forever and always, in the lands beyond Asshai.